cash is the oxygen of a company. You can be healthy and great. You cut off your oxygen, I don't care how healthy you are, you're in trouble, right? So really understand your cash position.
Welcome back. Today, we're going to be speaking with John Hudson. So John is the CEO of PeakPrecision Solutions. So he's the co-founder and CEO of InfoDoc as well. So 35 years in logistics and supply chain management. So he's an expert in designing, implementing, and managing custom freight management programs that cut costs and improve transparency. So he really thinks that AI is going to change the entire business. So we're going to be jumping into that. He has his MBA. And he's a family man as well. So he's married. He has 4 kids, and he's situated in Dallas, Texas. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for having me.
So, John, you and I, we got into like this conversation before we started and just, create a bunch of energy. But I'm really curious about your origin story. What got you into business? I know originally you were from California. And then you transition over to Texas, but maybe share that origin story that when you first got into business and you realized you're an entrepreneur.
Sure. So actually, when I first got into business, I was a hired gun. But I'll kind of explain. So right out of college, or actually, let me back up. Right out of high school, I started working for this logistics company called FDSI back in LA. And I originally wanted to go to law school. I was going to be an attorney. So I was pre-law originally. I went to USC growing up in Los Angeles. I was pre-law and I wanted to be an attorney. Both my grandfather and father were in the motion picture industry, worked in Hollywood, and I was going to be an attorney and I wanted to be an entertainment attorney. And here I am in logistics. But my story goes, out of high school, I started working for this company and I worked there in the summers and started making really good money selling logistics. So I'd go back to college, living in the fraternity house. One of my friends had jobs and they were waiting tables and bartending. And I would get this money in the mailbox from commission that I sold over the summer. And I didn't have to have a job, which is great. This is back in the late 80s. I'm dating myself now. I'm an older guy. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, where I was getting, a couple $1,000s a month, in commission. And I was living great and it was awesome. So fast forward to graduating college. So I went to go work for this company full time. And I started in operations, and I won't go through the whole story, but quickly worked my way up to be president of the company. And the company was small enough to where I can operate like an entrepreneur. The main owner, who was now the chairman as I kind of took over the day-to-day operations, allowed me to run the business as if it was my business. So even though I was a hired gun, I really had that entrepreneur spirit, and I really ran the business as an entrepreneur. That company was acquired in 2015 by Cardinal Health, a big healthcare company up in Ohio. Great company. Went to go work for them for a few years, and nothing bad about them. They were an amazing company, but like all $200 billion corporations, they are corporate, very corporate. So for me, I was a square peg in a round hole. Even though I stayed there almost 3.5 years, and it was a great experience, it just wasn't me. I was always had that entrepreneur, spirit in me. So after leaving Cardinal and after non-competes were up, I started a new business called PeakPrecision Solutions, which is basically doing what I did before, non-asset-based freight management consulting, supply chain management consulting. And that led into, and I know we're going to get into the AI part, the second business that you mentioned, InfoDoc, which is a SaaS software solution utilizing AI to take a lot of redundancies out of the logistics process. Separate company. And I think AI is absolutely the way, especially in logistics, which is very, very labor intensive and very process oriented, to automate a lot of these processes and let AI kind of take over. So I'm kind of hedging my bets. I got the logistics side of it, still going, which I've been doing for 35 years, which I know like the back of my hand, but really jumping into the AI because I do believe that is the future.
Oh, there's so much we could go down. First one, I'm gonna ask you. The first question is, when you say like the spirit of an entrepreneur, if you were to like really kind of try to define that as best as you can, what would you say that is for the listeners out there?
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't want to sound.
That's a tough question.
But that is a tough question, but I will answer.
There's so much there.
There is so much there, and I'm trying to think of where to start. So, I love leading people, but I love leading people in stuff that I can control. if that makes
Mm,
sense. So,
yeah.
so being an entrepreneur and being the guy that runs the show, obviously I collaborate with my team and I'm very intimate with my team and love their advice and everything. But being an entrepreneur, I just love that kind of gunslinging, not knowing what's going to happen. Fast pace, fast growth, make
Yeah.
your own decisions, live and die by your own decisions.
Yeah.
I mean, not hopefully not die, but you get my point.
Yeah. Yeah.
That just is more me than grinding out a 9 to 5.
Mm, yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah.
And the reality is that whatever business you start, the market is a perfect, like it's a very fair, although it seems unfair. The reality is you either provide value to the marketplace and it responds with, yes, this is valuable, or this, bam, this isn't valuable, which,
Right.
the reality, the reality is we as entrepreneurs, we have a perfect soundboard with our ideas, and it's not always what we think it is. So it's like the
Right.
ability to go back at it where things didn't work is I think is one of those traits as well. But yeah, you're very much rewarded or penalized based on the value that you provide, of the actual value that the
Right.
market receives, not the value that you think you provided, if that makes sense.
And that makes perfect sense. And it's, yeah, to your point, it is the value, but it's not just the value. It's someone's willing to pay you money for that value
Yeah.
and the right amount of money for that value. Right. So, yeah. And finding that mix and understanding your numbers. I mean, I'm sure we're going to get into this, running a business. I think a lot of entrepreneurs go off their passion, which
Yeah.
passion is great. Don't get me wrong. But is your passion something, that can provide value to a customer that someone's going to pay you for? And then is it scalable, right?
Mm.
And then really understanding your fixed costs, variable costs, and in how are you gonna, what route are you gonna go?
Yeah. No, that's really good. So, John, I have three boys. I have a 17, 15, and 13-year-old. And my 17-year-old now, he's in his last grade of high school. And we've been talking, like, what's he going to do next? So he's thinking about college. We've been talking about like anything AI is great. And then I'm like, accounting, like the accounting side, if you know your numbers in a business, like no matter what business you start, that was going to be very helpful. What advice would you have for the young teenagers out there, whether, and maybe it's not even school, maybe it is school. I mean, you have an MBA. What advice would you have for that 17-year-old that, the kind of the world is their oyster if you want to get into some sort of business, but what advice would you have for the young entrepreneurs that are out there today?
Sure. So I love my college experience. I went to USC as an undergrad. I went to USC as, got my MBA from USC. I'm a diehard Trojan, if there's any Trojan fans out there. So I do believe in education, and it's, it is the best, one of the best things I ever did. But I will say the ROI on an undergrad today, on what some of these undergrads cost, just isn't there.
Yeah.
So what I told my son, I'm pivoting here a little bit. So my son's a senior at Oklahoma University, OU, and he wanted to go to USC. And I said, USC's 80 grand a year. Nobody cares. And he wants to be a doctor. He's pre-med.
Yeah.
Like nobody asked their doctor, where did you get your undergrad?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
That's
where'd
true.
you go to med school? So I said, look, go to OU. It's a great school. They got a great pre-med program. And then let's spend the money on your, doctor's degree. And that's what everybody cares. Go to a top 10 school. So if it's just going to be undergrad and nothing else, I would question really is the ROI there and paying for
Mm.
these schools. Now, I'm probably going to talk out of both sides of my mouth here, so I apologize,
No,
right?
that's great.
So, there is tremendous value in going to college. You learn to work with other people, you learn responsibility, you build a network. A lot of the people I do business with now are people I went to college with, fraternity bros. So there's definitely value in that. But I think, spending these top dollar, we're going to these top dollar schools and for an undergrad, in my opinion, is, I don't want to say
Mm.
a waste of money. That's probably a little dramatic, but you should really kind of step back and think about the ROI.
Mm.
Now, if you're going to go on to get your MBA, you talk about finance. I have a lot of friends that are in private equity. You have to have an MBA to get into private equity. It doesn't matter, what you think about the ROI or not, right? So depending on what route you want to go, that would decide what you want to do. I was listening to a podcast today, and the guy was talking. This was a guy who had his PhD, and he's saying, if I had to tell my kids today, I would tell them to go be plumbers and electricians.
Yeah.
With AI, so because there always need plumbers and electricians, and go build a business and
Yeah.
be a good plumber or electrician and build a business there. You don't need a degree, and AI is not going to take your job.
Yeah. No, that's really good insight. I've heard that any home services is like
Right.
it's a great spot to be right now. So I guess for like taking, what to go into, with AI coming down the pipe, which industries do you think are going to get hit the hardest? And if you're, say, young and you're looking to get going, so home services, that's a direction as well. But okay, maybe we'll start with the first question is AI, which industries do you think are going to get hit first and the hardest?
So what's interesting is I think AI is not going to take if you're talking about somebody who's afraid they're going to lose their job. What I always tell people, and especially the guys that work for me, I said AI is probably not going to take your job, but someone who understands AI is going to take your job. So I
Mm,
think the first advice I would give anybody is really understand AI and how it can make your job more efficient, right?
yeah, yeah,
So that would be first. I think industries, what I have seen, and I don't want to get hate comments on here if I pick somebody's industry, but yeah, I mentioned I wanted to be an attorney. The lower level attorney contract writing, I've drafted 3 or 4 amazing contracts using AI and not even talking to an attorney, sending it to an attorney, my attorney to validate it and review it. But think about that. If you can have access
mm,
to, I don't know, whether it's an NDA or some, minor contract, if you have access to thousands or hundreds of thousands of phenomenal contracts and AI can actually write it for you, best practice,
right.
best bullet point, why would you go spend thousands of dollars to an attorney to draft something? And anything like that, I think, healthcare is going to. I mean, I don't think I'm ready for the robot to just do my surgery,
Yeah,
but I'm certainly okay with telemedicine instead of talking to a person, talking to an
yeah.
AI person that knows more than the person, the doctor would know. So I think all those I hate saying lower level, but the lower level positions are going to be the ones first to go. But if you understand AI and you could incorporate it into your job, I think you're pretty safe.
So good. What would you say for like the entrepreneurs that are out there? Like, how can they utilize? What's the best way they can utilize AI today? Is there any kind of low hanging fruit that you'd say, hey, listen, like if you do these things and you go to here, you can actually start. I love your idea about content. That's the funny thing is people constantly, I've been speak with my wife even, and she's like, yeah, you could do this. I'm like, oh, I didn't even think that you could do that. But
Right.
it seems so simple now, of course, but you get these different ideas and how you can use it. But how are you seeing businesses use AI for the entrepreneurs out there that could start plugging into that method?
I'll get into that in a second. Let me start by saying this.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is about 3 months ago, so it's a little dated, but only 3 months. There was a survey that I think Deloitte Touche did, and they went out and they went to all these companies. I mean, there were thousands of companies within the U.S. and said, "How many of you are using AI?" And I thought prior to seeing the survey, it'd be, oh, like 50%, and I'm behind the curve, and I got to jump on the bandwagon, or I'm dead. It was 6%.
Wow.
Okay, 6%. So yes, it's going to be, something we need to get into, but you have not missed the boat yet, right? There's plenty of time. Now, I probably everybody out there is using AI to some degree, right? I'm using
Yeah.
ChatGPT to help write your emails or write
Yeah.
draft a letter. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about utilizing AI for business processes.
Mm,
6%. So that will increase, obviously, whether it's a year, 2 years, I don't know. But I would say the areas to focus. So what I did, and I'm by no means the AI expert here. Okay, I'm a logistics guy. My business partner in InfoDoc is an AI expert, so I've been learning quite a bit from him. But
cool.
I will tell you what I did
Yeah.
is actually through YPO. So YPO offered through the technology network an AI course for CEOs. It's phenomenal, Mark. If you want to
Oh,
go
great.
and
I'm on that. Yeah.
yeah, do it for sure. And it is very high level. It took about 4 hours. I did it on a Saturday and just went through it all, different modules. And it taught me so much of what I can do for AI, for contracts, for analytics, you know, putting in the proper prompt to get the better results,
Yeah.
from AI, because that's
Yeah.
the key. So you can ask a question of AI, but if you put in the proper, if you take the time to do the proper prompts, you're going to get a much better, result, obviously. But then taking that and being able to scale it in a business situation is a whole other animal, right?
Mm.
But that's what I would do first. I would really just take the time to learn AI, and not learn AI by playing with ChatGPT to write your emails. I mean, really learn AI, right?
Yeah, and this is where it's like if you're going to be spending money on courses, like I mean, it's interesting. I talked to my son about this. He's like, "Why don't you just ask Chat GPT to create a course on learning AI and have them teach you the course on Chat GPT with
Right.
the right prompt?" It's like create $1,000 course for me on how to better learn AI, right? So but I love that to like start diving in and taking these courses. And so that's where whatever organizations that you're a part of or online, just, taking the steps and learning. I think when you're intentional about learning, yeah, seeking you shall find, right? I think
Absolutely.
ultimately, if you want to find the information, you'll get your hands on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay, so courses, that was the best. What would you say are some examples now that we're on this topic that
Sure.
you've seen within your business that you've implemented where you were able to like save a lot of time, or you've seen other businesses introduce it? I don't know if any examples that you could share with the listeners so that they can start getting some context
Sure.
as to how
Sure.
much this can impact a business.
I'll tell specifically how I've used it
Yeah.
in my logistics business. We get quite a few, multiple large RFPs a month. And there are some of these, RFPs are 10, 15, 20 pages, 150 questions. And entering that RFP into ChatGPT or whatever AI tool
Mm,
you're using, and giving it the right prompts and having it at least come up with a structure to help answer, because it knows I've taught it enough about the business. Because remember, a lot of the prompts and it's learning about Peak Precision Solutions. So it can autofill a lot of the stuff that would take you hours to, fill in. So my guys that run RFPs for us, they'll use AI to take care of, and I bet it's 80, 85%. It will just auto populate, and it's perfect. It's as good as you and I would write it. It's how you and I would write it because it understands our writing style. It's seen enough. So
mm.
utilizing it on RFPs, and then on the back end for customers that I have, analytics, just taking a bunch of data and dumping it in there and saying, run all these analytics for, monthly business reviews or quarterly business reviews for all my customers, that I would have a team spend hours preparing these PowerPoint slides and run metrics and spreadsheets. AI does that in minutes, and it's
Love that.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, so those are the two biggest ones that I currently use. So for InfoDoc, what we do is we're taking I'll try not to get too far in the weeds here for the listeners, but so inbound logistics, when you're shipping a lot of product to a consumer, a hospital, for example, a lot of shipments are coming in. You have to manage thousands of suppliers and making sure they're using the right carrier and that it's matching purchase order information. That is a very labor intensive process. I used to have a staff of 20 people just chasing data all day long to match freight bills. Well, the AI does that. I mean, and I don't look at it, that's a new company. I always hate saying eliminate people because that's not the
Yeah.
goal here. It's to scale with less overhead, right? As I'm scaling the company. So where I had 20 people in the old model doing that, I think if I got to that size, I would have two people. I mean, think about that from a scale. You can't compete. How is a logistics company that has 20 people, which is the biggest part of their, going to compete with a guy who has two doing the same thing?
Yeah. Yeah,
You're
and
not.
probably with higher quality results as well,
Absolutely.
right? With
For sure.
consistency, because you can start to teach it. Hey, you only need to remind it once, and then it remembers forever, right? No sick days. No,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you don't need to like motivate. There's none of that. It's a matter
No.
of like
They
it
never
shows
get
up every
mad
day.
on the phone with your customer. They're never, it's always even keel.
Yeah,
We even have AI bots talking to suppliers and our customers, and it's phenomenal.
yeah. No,
I mean, they've
exactly.
really I don't say they perfected it, but they've come a long way where it doesn't sound like an AI. I got on the phone. Oh, God, I got on the phone testing this out for at half hour. I was talking to this agent, And I tried to stump it. I tried every which way, Mark, yelling at it. And it was so cool. And it was just so calm and perfect. And for the entire half hour, I was like, I gave up.
It's really exciting, and we're just at the beginning of this
Right.
whole trend. And it's like you see things are moving quick. Like I even notice it with ChatGPT. It's like there's upgrades happening all the time on a regular basis, getting smarter, right? So
Right.
where do you think this is going? I mean, some are like, well, the robots are going to take over, and then others like, well,
Right.
like I mean, 5, 10 years, 20 years down the road, like where do you see? I mean, you're a smart guy,
Well,
and you speak with a lot of smart people. Where do you see this going?
Well, if you go online and type in AI and the word conspiracy, you could probably go down a lot of, dark
Yeah,
rabbit holes, right?
yeah,
From Terminator,
yeah,
they're coming to get us on down to, everything else. But what I see is, you know, the tool is amazing, but going back to my point, 6% adoption right now at scale, so it's one thing to have the tool. It's a whole other thing for everybody to adopt it.
right.
So we got to get there. Everyone's like, because I talk to business owners all the time, like, I'm so behind the curve. I got to jump on this. No, you're not. You're, in fact, at 6%, if you got on right now, you're an early adopter,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what the future holds. I would say that if you really sit back and think about all the things that are very labor intensive that the machine could do well or better, that is where the big change is going to be. Analytics, you know, um, writing proposals, all that stuff that just takes a lot of time that could literally be, snap of a finger for
Yeah.
AI.
No, 100%. Well, it's exciting. So what about, so how many staff do you have across your companies currently right now?
So they're both somewhat startups. Peak
Yeah.
Precision Solutions about a year and a half old. InfoDoc is a pure startup. So Peak Precision Solutions, we have about 10 right
Yeah.
now and scaling. InfoDoc, we have 5.
So
So still small.
when you do a start, so just for the listeners out there, they have an idea, they're looking to do a startup. What I mean, you have two of them, and successful. And I'm curious, what is it that makes a successful startup compared to a failure startup? What do you think the differences are?
So I would say first, well, we kind of talked about one in the beginning here. I'd first understand your why. Why are you doing it?
Mm,
Right. If it's just a passion, which is great. I'm not saying don't follow your passion. That's not what I'm saying. But make sure your passion can make you money, right? It brings value and you get paid for it and you could
right.
scale it. Number one. I would say for me, what I have found invaluable is surround yourself with like minded, successful people that will support you and encourage you, right? And, I'm very fortunate to be, as we talked about, in YPO. So I'm constantly surrounded by a lot of very successful entrepreneurs that really want to help me out. I heard this quote once, and this may be a little dramatic, but I'm going to say it anyway. This was a billionaire that gave this quote. I won't tell you who, but he said that, show me your 5 best friends and I'll tell you your future.
Hmm.
And if you are, and again, for the young people out there that are starting businesses, I'm not saying go ditch your friends, and go hang out with, a bunch of business folks that are successful. I'm not saying that at all. But just beware of who you're spending most of your time with. If you're spending most of your time with your ex fraternity bros that are, still drinking and not have jobs, it's probably going to pull you down and not give
Yeah.
you, they're not definitely not going to give you the best advice from a business standpoint, right? So really try to surround yourself with successful people would be my second thought. And I would say really understand the numbers. When you go into this, understand not just the P&L. I mean, at least for me on the 2 startups, my biggest worry right now is cash flow management. I'm bootstrapping both these companies. So the cash is literally the bank of John's, IRAs being cashed out and
Yeah.
savings accounts. So cash is very important to me, but really understand how much can you bleed, I guess, for lack of a better word, to get this up and going? And when do you think you're going to hit black? And what does that mean? And, it's one thing to look profitable on the P&L. It's a whole other thing to manage cash. There's a
Mm,
lot of profitable companies on the P&L that ran
yeah.
out of cash. Think of cash as, cash is the oxygen of a company.
Yeah.
You can be healthy, and great. You cut off your oxygen, I don't care how healthy you are, you're in trouble, right? So really understand your cash position.
Yeah, no, and that I think is like that's a very powerful concept to teach entrepreneurs, like the P&L. So what your net profit is or your EBITDA is in a business is a very different statement than your cash flow statement. It's
Right.
like for me, it's like give me the cash flow statement as fast as possible. Like the P&L
Right.
can wait, but like give me the
Yeah,
cash, right? And I think that's like a good thing, no matter where the company is at, even if it's super
absolutely.
profitable. Bottom line is if you're managing your cash really smart, I love what you said because I use that same example. Like cash is oxygen, and it's interesting because we buy these multifamily assets, these like 100-unit apartment buildings, and when we go in, we basically we go in and we look at all the numbers, but then when we're coming in and we're looking at taking a project from 3 to 5 years, we look at that as a business, and there's like three different golden rules that we follow to protect oxygen, because if you run out of oxygen in a business, you die. If you run out of oxygen in a real estate deal, you die.
You die.
So it's like the three golden rules we follow is number one, we only buy deals that cash flow from day one. That's like extra reserves, so to speak. So you got to burn through the cash flow before you get to zero. The second one is adequate cash reserves at the property level. And number three is we fix our debt. And if we fix the debt, then all of a sudden we know that there's not going to be fluctuations that's going to dip into our cash flow as well. As
Right.
well. So it's interesting because like when you start learning that lesson in business, you realize that deals, even outside of business, are business deals, and cash at the end of the day is, I guess, what do I say? Cash is king,
Cash is
right?
king.
And so,
Yeah, and
very
you're
good.
absolutely right, Mark. And I think going through, when you're starting a business, you're going to hit, and I hate saying failures because that sounds so finite and ending, right? But you're going to hit obstacles or failures. You
Yeah,
can't have success without failure. And the key is, obviously understanding it, learning from it, course correct, move on, right? But that's one of the running out of cash is one of those failures that it's really difficult to move on from,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So that, I mean, that's to me, that is the most important thing that I watch right now.
yeah.
And
No, that.
there's times, as an entrepreneur, I don't take income. Make sure
Mhm,
my people are paid.
yeah,
You are paid last. You just got to know that. You got to know that going in. This isn't a 9 to 5 that you're going to get your paycheck every 2 weeks. You may not get a paycheck.
yeah, for sure. It's interesting because, there's the startup, and then even for the existing businesses, it's like when cash is like flowing, and it's like you get what's interesting is because I've been through a few different cycles in our first business, and it's like cash is flowing, and I look back on it, and it's like, okay, all of a sudden you start to bloat a little bit. You start to hire a little extra. Oh, we
Right.
need more people. We need more people. And then all of a sudden, you start to go down in a downward cycle, and it's like, oh geez, like we had actually overhired on that. And so what I've kind of learned, and it's still, even it's happened a few different cycles now that I've seen, and it's like
Sure.
the next time we're gonna be tighter, the next time we're not gonna be
We've
doing
all
that.
gone through that for sure. Right.
So this is going back to the associations. I think that's really important, is that when you surround yourself with like really sharp people, they can actually call you out
Right.
on that as well, of saying, hey, listen, like, did you think about this, this, and this? Right. And
Yeah.
I love that suggestion about people that you're hanging around with as well. Cause I mean, in business, one piece of advice or one misstep can, knock you on your ass pretty fast.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So, yeah.
going back to
No,
surrounding yourself with good people, the
yeah.
advice you get, I always use this quote. I tell my kids this all the time. And when someone's talking bad about them, I always say, "Would you ask that person for advice?" And they're like, "No." I'm saying, "Well, why do you care what they think about you? Why do you care what they're saying?" Kind of the thing goes for business. Everybody that I get advice from, I would ask for advice. So they're
Yeah.
giving me constructive, especially in YPO, right?
Yeah.
They're giving me constructive criticism, and I don't take it as, "Oh gosh, how are you criticizing what I'm doing?" They've been through it.
Yeah.
I'd rather learn from their experiences than learn by fire.
100%. And I,
Right.
100%. And they're coming from a place of, listen, they don't have anything to gain
No,
on that.
they have
The
no dog
reality,
in the fight. Right.
and that's what I found with like really successful people, is like they want to help you, like genuinely, because it's like if they've learned something, they're coming from this place of like, hey, listen, I went through that, and if you do this is this, like you're gonna be just fine, and watch out for this.
Right.
right? They get a kick out of it, and it's powerful. It's very powerful who you hang
Very
around
powerful.
with. Yeah, and it's
Absolutely.
interesting because we tell our kids this stuff, right? It's like, be careful you hang around. I'm not a fan of the group you're hanging around or whatnot. But when you grow up, you just don't think of it the same
No,
way. But it's actually becomes, even more and more important as,
definitely more important.
or maybe just as important, maybe.
Right.
So yeah, right. Uh, okay, so you go through that early startup phase, you start to hire. What are some of the key, we'll say, lessons that you've learned hiring staff through the years?
And I've hired a lot of people over the years. Um, it's when you're interviewing someone, they're on their A game, right? I mean, they're absolutely on their A game. So it's very difficult when you interview somebody to know that they are the right choice because they are literally on their A game. The
Yeah.
references they give you, they're not going to give you bad references. They're going to give you guys that you're going to call. They're going to say, "Oh yeah, John's the best thing since sliced
Yeah.
bread. He's awesome. He's this, right?" So it's very difficult when you're interviewing to know you're getting the right person. A lot of the hires that I've done so far have people that I've been fortunate that I've worked with in the past. So again, you're not always that lucky to be able to know their background, but at least for my two startups now, they're all people that I worked with in my previous company, which is great. I would say, I think Jack Welch said this from GE. It's a 50-50 shot when you interview somebody, right? Whether you're getting the right person or not. I would really do your due diligence. And in the interview process, what I like to do is instead of asking them what their accomplishments are, and because they have that all bulleted, right? They've practiced for a week what they're going to answer that question with this is throw some curveballs. What did you
Hmm.
not like about the last company and why?
Hmm.
And what I see is red flags. If somebody starts complaining, oh, that last company I worked for, my boss was this and it was awful. Okay, maybe a red flag, maybe not. But things like that, I think when they start talking bad about the last company they work for or the last three companies they work for, it's like, okay, well, that's three. Is it maybe you as the common denominator, right? So I think throwing curveballs in an interview process is and mix it up so they're off their game. You want to have somebody, and again, I'm not saying this to manipulate people. Is get them off that. Tell me your accomplishments. The
Yeah.
standard things that most people do in an interview, and I found that to be very effective.
Yeah, that's really powerful for sure. And you're right. Like what you see at the beginning of the interview, if it's long enough, sometimes I start to see them crack a little bit, and it's like,
Right.
well, I sense a little something there. I was like, what is that? Let's dig into that.
Yeah.
What we've done sometimes in the past is we've actually created like job simulations. So we actually bring
Okay.
them on and actually have them do the role for a bit and actually see if they can do what they say that they're going to do as well. And it's like, let's date a little bit here first before. And it's interesting. I've had some different feedback. I remember this one candidate, we were hiring her for like our CFO position. So it was like a really high paying job. And
Sure.
we said, we have a job simulation here that we like. And she's like, well, how much time is it going to be? And she started asking questions. I'm like, ooh, red flag. And she's like,
Red flag. Right.
yeah, it's like
Right.
we're about to hire you for like a senior position here, and we're
Yes,
giving
the
you like
C-suite. Right.
it's like you start to have that. Then what's it going to be like when we start like we get married, right? Like type
Right.
thing. So no, that's really good. I like that through the questioning standpoint and just watching for those red flags. I think a lot of times what happens as an entrepreneur, it's like, oh, they're like me. Oh, we're connecting. It's like fireworks going, but a lot of times you need somebody that's very different than you.
You don't want a bunch of renegades, right? You need some level-headed,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Totally. All right. So we all make, as an entrepreneurs, we make lots of decisions through the day,
Right.
right? Lots of them. And I really believe that the quality of a company is the quality based on the quality of the decisions that are being made.
Sure.
So what helps you make great decisions, better decisions? Do you have any filters that you filter your decisions through to be able to get consistently good?
I
Or,
try to okay, this is, obviously progress, not perfection, right? But I really try hard for every decision I make for the business, and this goes for anything in my life, but we're talking about business now. Any decision I make for the business, I try to have it match my core values. And particularly, I'll talk about three top ones for me: integrity, right? If you're not making a decision out of integrity, how are you going to build trust with the stakeholders? And I mean stakeholders internally and externally.
Yeah.
You just can't build trust, right, without integrity. I think the second one would be empathy,
Mm.
making sure you understand, going back to the stakeholders, both internal and external, this decision that I'm making, how does it affect my customers, my suppliers, my employees, my board, my team, and really understand all those dynamics before you make the decision. And I think really the third one, probably accountability. Own your decision. Can I own my decision? Good, bad, or indifferent? Because not every decision you're not going to bat 1,000. If it goes bad, do I? And I teach. I tell this to all my team is own your decision. If we have to course correct, we'll course correct, but own it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think those three, I mean, we can go on with hundreds of different values, but, and I think having those align, everybody loves to post their company values on their website, right? Our values are this, 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 this. Whatever your company values are, whatever your personal values are, whatever values you use to drive decisions, as well as the values that drive the culture of your company, all have to align,
Mm.
right? In my opinion. I mean,
Yeah,
if
I
they don't
agree.
align, then you're giving mixed messages and you're not building trust, or
Yeah.
let's just leave it at trust. I mean, I think that's probably the most important thing when I make a decision.
Yeah.
Sticking to my values.
Yeah. 100%. And that's where I think values, I mean, it's interesting when you hear values, it's kind of like, oh, that's nice values. But like, as the leader of the company, you are like the lead cheerleader, I
Right.
found, when it comes to values. Like when you're hiring people, you're firing people, it's like you're making decisions. It's like you as a senior leader, you have to like breathe it over the company constantly. And I think Jack Welch actually said with values, they're like mushrooms that kind of grow over time. And so what happens is they kind of like shroom out
Right.
within a company. But if the top leader is not like speaking over the company, those values, and making decisions and actually breathing them, I found that they become like values on the wall, and you get
Right.
misalignment.
Right.
And so I 100%, like I'm hardcore on breathing these values to be able to create, because we found like when we first started, it was like you start bringing people on and it's like one person is operating one way, another person's operating another way. But if you can create this alignment, and it doesn't even really matter what the values are, as long as there's a consistent, I mean, they're not bad values. You shouldn't be picking bad values like
Of course. Right.
anger and hate and all that.
Right.
It's like love is a good one. Go with
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
But if everybody is filtering through those same decisions, then what happens is the customers, they get a consistent experience, especially if they're working with multiple people within the company. That's the only way you can really do it. And so I'm a huge advocate. It's been one of the biggest things in our companies that we've implemented. So
Mine too. And the consistency of the consistency of the values drives the culture. 100%. Inconsistency is going to bring the wrong message. And I mean, we could have a whole podcast on
oh,
this, I'm sure.
100%.
Right.
Yeah. See, but you could see, I think that that's the key message, is that you and we both run large companies. And if we're that excited about core values,
Right.
then like there's something to it. And I just like, it's been massive. And it's not something that you can talk about too much. That was something that was at the beginning. I was like, I'm over talking, and it's interesting. I think it was Jack Welch again. Like this guy's like phenomenal.
Right.
He's like, you can't over talk. He's like, when you start thinking that you're talking too much about the values, that means you're actually just starting to talk about it enough. It's like you can't
I would
over
agree.
talk about values. It's just the key is to learn new ways to breathe it over, right? And to say it in different ways, but you're still saying pretty much the same message, right?
100%.
All right. So let's talk about the regular habits and routines that, a guy like you, super productive, you're running two companies. Like, how do you do it on a day to day? Like, what are some things that you do regularly that you found to be the best results, activities that you do consistently?
So outside of business, I'll start with outside of business. So I go to the gym religiously. I'm at the gym 5 days a week, no matter what. If I have to go at 4 in the morning, I'll go at 4 in the morning. I have to go at 10 o'clock at night, I'll go at 10 o'clock at night. But I do not. I mean, it's very rare that I miss the gym. And that goes in. So that's one. And I'll talk about the other, and we'll go back to the gym thing. The other is prayer and meditation. I have a routine that I do in the morning that kind of centers me for the day. And I have a routine that I do at the end of the night. When I lay down in bed, I just kind of go through this routine I have, which kind of calms me and kind of, level sets the day, I guess, for lack of a better word. And that's helped me out quite a bit. I do occasionally, if it's one of those crazy days, I'll stop in the middle of the day and just pause and take 30 minutes and just turn off my email and turn off my phone and meditate.
Hmm.
And I see it actually calms me and kind of recenters me if I'm just, going in 15 different directions, which is pretty much every day. But going back to the gym thing. So I think a lot of people get caught up on, well, how are you motivated all the time, John? You're running two companies. What keeps you motivated all the time? And it's really not motivation. Now, motivation is great. Don't get me wrong. It's discipline. Discipline trumps motivation all the time. Motivation is a feeling you get when you want to do something. You're doing something, you're going to do something you want to do. It's
Yeah.
a feeling, which means it comes and goes. You cannot rely on motivation for sustained anything, right? So you got to rely on discipline. I do what I need to do every day, going back to the gym or business. I do what I need to do every day, whether I want to or not, whether I'm motivated or not, whether I'm tired or not. I just do it. And that's really discipline. So I get asked all the time, oh, well, you're 55. How do you go to the gym every day? Why are you motivated? Well, I'm not. I hurt. I'm not motivated to go every day. If I went to the gym only when I was motivated, I'd literally work out one day a week, if that, maybe twice a month. It's
Yeah.
discipline, and you got to really get us. So and discipline comes with practice. It's not something you just flip a switch and, well, I'm instantly disciplined. You really got to train yourself to be disciplined in
Mm.
doing what you need to do, and that comes, good time management. But I think, working out for me has kept me. It's funny if I don't. There's occasionally where I'll go 3 or 4 days without going to the gym, and my wife will literally say, "You haven't worked out in 3 or 4 days, have you?" I'll say, "Why? Can you tell? You're so high strung and stressed. Like, go to the gym.
Go, honey. Go burn some energy.
Yeah,
Go.
go do something."
They,
And but it's so true. I feel it.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
I do feel it. I'm not going to say I get depressed. It's probably too aggressive, but I absolutely feel it if I don't go for 3 or 4 days in a row. Mentally,
A
I
hundred,
mean,
a
not just
hundred
physically,
percent.
mentally.
Yeah. So definitely working out for me as well. But actually, another thing that I found really helpful is walking.
Okay,
Like it's interesting because like, working out is it, but I find if I'm sitting too much, it's actually, and I don't get my walk in, especially like in the morning, like I feel it mentally. It's like I can sense it, I can feel it. And
sure.
it's like so definitely that activity is big. And it's interesting because as a business owner and you really dial in like what is that? It's like as an entrepreneur, you need a lot of energy. And because people feed like I think selling is the transference of enthusiasm. It's like you get a really strong salesperson. They're not like this slow and mopey, tired. It's
Right.
like
Right.
most of the guys, John, like the highest, just like yourself, perfect example. Like when you jump on, it's like boom, like you're ready to go. The energy level is at a different level.
Right.
Right. And so I think that's where with working out, that's where like even for myself, the days that I'm not like I feel more sluggish, right? And you eat a pizza
Absolutely.
and then you're not working out for a few days and you're just not feeling it. And it's like, and that brings me to sleep as well. Like sleep has now affected me more when I'm not getting my proper amount of sleep. And I'm like, why am I kind of like cranky right now?
Right.
Right?
Right.
So it's interesting because it's like, well, Mark, we're talking about business here. Why are we talking about health? But the reality is in order to be at your max, like you need to do this stuff in order to be at your max. Otherwise, you're not showing up. Even if you know what you need to do, you're just
Absolutely.
not actually showing up and performing for the team that needs you.
They're all intertwined. Absolutely. And that would be another good part. When you're first starting out as a young, whether it's entrepreneur or anything you do, you have to pay your dues. I mean, you have to. So there's not a lot of time for balance. But when I hear people say, "Well, I just don't have the time," you do. You can make the time. Figure it out. Be a little bit more efficient about time management. I don't care if it's 15 minutes of doing push-ups in your office and sit-ups. Do something. Move your body, because you're right, Mark. It's so intertwined then, and one complements the other and vice versa. And one hurts the other, right?
It's so
Potentially.
smart. It's smart. Yeah, like what you had said, like I don't have time. That's something that I've learned through the years is like when it's like people ask, it's like, Mark, do you golf or do you play hockey anymore? I'm just like, I used to say, I'm so busy and whatnot, but I realized when I started thinking about it, I'm like, no, it's just not a priority. I can make
Right.
time for it. It's all about priorities. So it's
All
like,
about priority.
that is like a really good, because all of a sudden now it puts you in control. It's not that you don't have time. It's just that, you're prioritizing other things. And for me, like, I'm good with that. It's like, listen, it's not a priority right now for me. I would,
Right.
I might go once a year, but it's got to be the right group that asks me, the right people.
Right.
Right. And so time's flying here, John, with you. So I want to. There's a couple more I want to ask, but I don't want to go over here at the same time. So how about a failure that you went through, and then what did you learn from it, or some of the, maybe was there a key lesson that you took out of it?
I'll tell you, fairly recent failure I went through. So after I left Cardinal, I took a year off, I had a big severance, and I said, I'm just going to take a year off and relax, which was way too much time to take off, by the way. I should have taken a couple months off. But anyway, took the year off. After the year, I started doing some consulting and I wanted to start a gym. I said, I work out a lot and it was kind of an ego thing. I want to own my own gym. So I went on my passion and my ego and jumped into an industry and a business that I knew nothing about, didn't do my due diligence on the numbers. And long story short, I won't tell you the whole horror story. Ended up buying it and taking way, it was going to be a side hustle. It took way too much of my time. It was barely breaking even. And I ended up selling it for a big loss. So it was a big failure. So what I learned from that is, again, going back to passion versus, what we already talked about, you know, it's okay to be passionate about something or be passionate about what you're doing, but make sure your passion is not just your ego and your passion talking, that you could actually make money doing it and really understand what you're getting into. Because I'm very strict when it comes to business and of rules I follow, with both my startups, of making sure that they're scalable and they're going to be profitable. And I just let all that go out the window when it came to the gym. I mean, I just
Right.
literally went pure passion and ego, and it was a disaster, and it cost me quite a bit of money. And
Yeah.
it was a lesson learned. I mean, it's money's money. You're going to make it back, but it's more of the lesson, and that was a big lesson.
Yeah, no, that's good, and you've scratched the itch now. You've taken the lesson, and
Right.
that's where it's interesting because there's some that would go through that, and they would constantly sit in failure. Oh, my life's a failure. But you like how and that's what I've noticed with entrepreneurs. They talk about quote unquote failures or challenges that they as like, oh man, I sure learned a lot from that, but I got this and this, by
Right.
going through that. I think the key is you just don't, you do your best not to try to relearn the same
No.
lesson. Like, learn your lesson,
Yeah, that's
don't
the
do it
key. Is
again.
yeah, don't do the
Right?
same thing over and over. Learn from your
Yeah,
mistakes, course correct, move on. Don't dwell on it. Don't blame. Just move on.
yeah.
Right.
100%. John, what keeps you motivated to keep going? I mean, two businesses, like you're constantly, reinventing yourself. Like you got this like energy in you. What keeps you going? What motivates you?
Four kids, big bills. No, that's
Yeah.
that's part of it, I
No,
guess.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Yeah, I
for
guess.
sure.
Right. Um, I love what I do. I'm one of those guys, and I probably shouldn't say this. This is probably not healthy. I don't ever want to really retire. I'm not one of those guys that wants to stop at 65 and go golf. We were talking about golf, and do a thing. I will always do something. I'm not going to say I'm one of those guys who's going to die with my boots on, to the bitter end. I do want to have some, sense of slowing down and as I get older. But I just am very driven. And again, I think it goes down to just very disciplined and very driven. Motivation again is great, and I am motivated, but I'm not always motivated. It's just this drive to, and it's not just about money. It's just about being successful and building businesses and leading people by inspiration and really making other lives. I really I think respect is a big thing for me. So respect for all my employees. I don't care if they're in the mailroom or the C-suite. They automatically have my respect as a team member and as a human being, right? Obviously, they can lose my respect if they, but you do something. But I hate when people go in and it's like, well, respect is earned. You're at the bottom of, kind of that old
Yeah.
school military, you
Yeah.
guys are all maggots and,
Yeah.
but I think, really treating people with respect, you're going to get more out of them because they're going to want to do better for you rather than I just come here for a paycheck and I just want to punch the clock and get out of here. And I've really tried to focus, whether it was the old business I ran for 20 years or my two new businesses, that's a key driver for me. And that, I don't say that drives me, but I mean, really waking up every day and knowing that I'm helping other people and I'm providing jobs for other people. I mean, that as a
Yeah.
business owner, it's not just about us. It's about them and their families, and they have kids and they have lives, and that keeps me happy and motivated, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's great. And there's no wrong answer to this. This is interesting. For me, it's like it's changed through the years. It's like when I first started, it was like putting food on the table because we maxed out
Right.
our credit cards. And then it was like,
Right.
awards. And then it was like, it's like status. And then there was like, oh, contribution. It's like, oh, building a company big enough where all the team members can hit their dreams as well and goals. And, it's like, it's cool. Like it changes over time. As long as it gives you stimulus to keep going, like you need something more to, you wake up a little early, you stay a little late, right?
Right.
But money, it motivates you to a certain point, and then it becomes like a measuring stick of, are you being successful or not? Is the marketplace telling you that you're delivering value again? Which then it becomes like the game of business, which gets kind of fun, right? And
Which
yeah,
is really, and I think too, Mark, you just really define what success means to you. I mean, if success is purely financial, then okay, then you'll
yeah,
go that route. But if you ask a Buddhist monk, what's success to you? It's spiritual enlightenment. They don't care about money at all. Like it's
yeah,
extreme, obviously. We're talking about business. But what does success mean to you? Being a good father, being a good husband,
yeah.
being a good contributor, a giver, philanthropy with my church, helping people, whatever it is, and being able to balance that all into one package is not easy. It's a lot of things, but that's what keeps me going is being well rounded.
So, John, how about like being a husband and a father? How do you, you run two companies, you're, husband, father, like, I don't know if balance is the right word for it, but like, how do you full out for, your wife and your kids while running a business at a high level? How do you do it?
So what I've done a pretty good job at, and again, this is probably not healthy from a not sleeping well standpoint, but I've done a good job. Two of my older kids are in college, so they're off doing their thing. But as far as the two younger kids, while they're in school, I'm obviously I get up super early, way before they get up. I'm working. I work till they get home from school. When they get home from school, I give them their time, and then when they get ready for bed, and once they go to bed, my wife puts them 8:30, 9 o'clock. No, I work from 9 to 11, 11:30, 12, and get stuff done. So it's not really taking time away from them. Again, probably not healthy, staying up to midnight every night working, but it's what I'm doing now. So I've been able to do that. And again, time management, it really isn't about balance. I don't think it's about finding your rhythm,
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
is a
that's
little
good.
different than
Yeah.
balance because everyone's trying to think, well, balance. Well, balance means that it's equal. It's never going to
Yeah.
be equal, right?
No.
Find your rhythm and kind of go with your rhythm, and it's going to ebb and flow. Sometimes they don't get the quality time that I think they deserve, unfortunately,
Yeah.
because it is what it is. And hopefully most of the time they do.
Yeah, I found for me, it's like it's seasons, and that's why when I ask the question, it's like, yeah, balance is it's never really been kind of like this perfect balance. It's like
No.
there's seasons, and then there's certain things. For me, it was like certain rules that been helpful. Like for me, it's like when I see the kids on a daily basis, the like first thing I'll do is I go up to them, give them a hug, and I tell them I love them. It's like
Right.
I want them to know that their dad loves them, right? And it's like it just tell them that every single day, and it's like as long as to me it's as long as you're when you're with them, I think it's like you're actually looking at them and having a conversation with them. I think that there's no like perfect answer. I've talked with a lot of entrepreneurs out there. I was talking to one, actually another YPO fellow yesterday, super successful, like, and he was saying the one thing that his dad did for him was that his dad treated him as an equal, as in when they were going to get they were going to fix the roof, for example, and they got a quote. he'd pull them over and say, "Hey, like, what do you think about this? We're looking to make this decision."
Interesting. Okay.
And I was like, "Oh," I'm like, that
Yeah.
is so good, being intentional about like including them and not like treating them like a kid, but treating them.
Right.
And he grew up and he's like, my dad's my mentor, and now he's like, he's blowing up the businesses, and he's like, that confidence that was instilled in me when growing up, like those are all little good things along the way, right? And it's funny what kids remember. uh
Right.
but I don't know that you can ever get it perfect. It's just you always do your best that you can, and you kind of pick up
You
little
do.
lessons along the way, right?
And I think a second ago you hit it on the head is there's time and there's quality time, right?
Yeah,
I
right.
would rather spend an hour of quality time with my kids than 4 hours of scrolling on my
Yeah,
phone sitting next to them on the couch.
so good. So good.
Right.
That's true. And
So,
that's
which
reality,
how many
right?
people do? Well, I spend four
Yeah,
hours a night with my kids as you're, watching TV or scrolling on your phone. That's not
yeah,
spending time with your kids.
yeah,
So
yeah,
think about quality rather than quantity, and I think you're okay.
yeah. Right on. How about investing, John? What advice would you have for the entrepreneurs out there? I mean, like, there's millions of different options out there. I mean, even like for us on the real estate investment firm, we have to look at 300 deals to pick one. And so
Right.
we have kind of our filtering mechanisms for that, but there's so many things that you can invest in. What kind of lessons learned, or what advice would you have for the listeners when they're looking to make an investment from the profit that they made from the business that they've created?
Sure. So I'll talk about it in two different ways. So one is on the personal side. So what I did at an early age with the old business I ran is take advantage of tax deferred investments. So obviously the simple one is 401k, max your 401k. But I set up what's called the defined benefits plan. I don't know if you're familiar with what that is, but I was able to sack away close to $100,000 a year more tax deferred, which obviously compounded interest growing over the years, which now that I'm 55, I really like that number. Right? It was so if you can start something like that from utilizing the business, because they allow you to do these different tax deferred things with the business, whether it's a DB plan or a 401k, really maximize those. But as far as investing in the business, from business money for the business, that's a tough one. I mean, you go in so many different angles. I think, what we did at the old companies, we bought our own, we were leasing for a long time and ended up buying our own building in California, which turned out to be a great investment. Not only did it significantly reduce our monthly net of what we were paying in rent, we had, three other floors that we were able to rent out and actually, cash flow for us. We made money. So that was one we did. But again, that's a tough question because there's so many different ways you can go on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of guys I've spoken, and I asked that question to a lot, and a lot of times they'll say exactly similar to what you had said. They said, "You know what, Mark, we ended up buying the building that our business was in, and that was a
Yeah,
very smart decision, smart
very smart.
decision, right?"
Right.
And so, I think at the end of the day, that's good advice. And taxes, you want to try and minimize taxes for 100% because it's your biggest
Right.
line item generally in
Of
your
course.
business, right? So you minimize that, but then buying any sort of like real estate has made a lot of millionaires through the years as well. So that's great advice. All right, so we're at rapid fire section here. So I got three last questions. We're going to wrap it up. You ready?
Okay. I'm ready.
All right, so I'm a big reader. I love reading. I'm curious, which book has made the biggest impact in your career?
Grit.
Oh yeah, okay. It was Angela. Angela. Yeah, yeah,
Oh God,
yeah,
Duck
yeah.
something. I'm
Okay.
butchering her name. I apologize, Angela, if you're listening to this podcast. Duxbury or Ducksworth or yeah,
Yeah. So
great book.
So what would your biggest takeaway be from that book? If you're kind of like summarize kind of your main nugget.
Perfect for an entrepreneur. Passion and perseverance outweighs talent.
100%.
Right.
Yeah. That's
I mean,
succinct and well
that's what
said.
they're basically saying with all the data. If you go through the entire book, that summarizes it, right? Grit to me is discipline on steroids. So it is that determination where you don't have a plan B, and quitting is not an option.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's I'm gonna make this work, and I'm gonna make this work, period. And that drive to just keep going forward, no matter what adversity, no matter what obstacle or failure, right? You hit along the way. Just that drive,
Yeah.
relentless drive.
Burn the ships.
Definitely the best book.
Love
Yep.
that. All right. Second question is how would others describe you in 3 different words?
I guess that depends who you ask. Um, I would say disciplined. I'm gonna do a kind of a bad one just so I don't sound like a bully. Stubborn, but stubborn in a good way. Stubborn in that if you learn through fire, and I know that a certain situation I've done 10 times and it's turned out a certain way, I'm not going to do it again. Don't try to talk me into it. I'm going to be stubborn about it. So that's what I mean by stubborn, not stubborn in a bad way. And I think the other one would be empathetic.
No, that's really good. And I think as a leader, it's like sometimes you need to go against the grain.
You
I've
have
had
to,
it before, whereas like all the leaders in the company were saying this way. I'm like, no, we got to go this way. And you got to be willing to stand on your own if you really believe in it. And you got to be willing to take ownership at the
right?
end of the
And
day
own
and,
it. That's right.
swallow it if you're off on that. But
Yeah.
sometimes if you just have that you're like, I'm confident this is what it is. You're wearing that hat for a reason. And sometimes you got to make that judgment call, not try to, lead by democracy or we're going to lead from a vote. I've heard that sometimes in the past. It's like, let's vote on it. I'm like, just like,
Yeah. Right.
no, I want to hear everybody's opinion on that.
Of
And,
course.
but at the end of the day, like we got to make the best decision. There's no votes. Because then what happens? You get one strong leader that votes one way and then the other ones start, just following a line versus
That's
anyway.
right.
So, all right. And then final question, what final advice would you have for the listeners today?
So what I would have is it's kind of what I said before. Really uh, understand your passion. That your passion can bring value and bring money. Number one. Number two, surround yourself. I'm going to repeat myself, and I apologize, but this is important. Surround yourself by people that want to help you, that are successful. That is a key driver of your success. I'm telling you. And again, don't ditch your old friends. Don't say John said get rid of all my old friends. That's not what I'm saying. But surround yourself by people that are successful, that will help you, that have been through what you're about to go through. I would say, again, going back to the numbers, really understand the numbers, cash flow, really understand how to manage cash, how to read a cash flow statement. Live and die by your cash, period, in the beginning, right? Especially if you're bootstrapping it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it just really doesn't matter. It gives you cash. You live and die by your cash. And really lead by transparency and by example.
Yeah.
To build trust with your team right out of the gate. Because someone that trusts you and feels that you respect them and respect their opinion, they'll follow you into battle every time. Don't lead by fear. Don't be the boss who leads by fear. Lead by inspiration and by showing them and sticking to your core values.
Yeah. Love that. John, man, what a great conversation. So
Yeah,
good.
thank you, Mark.
Very, very cool. Love your story. And there's so many golden nuggets that were shared in this. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
I appreciate you having me, Mark.
Right on. And thank you everyone for listening. If you enjoyed the show, you can go ahead and subscribe to the channel and share with any others that you think will benefit from it. And just remember, the fastest way to grow your wealth is to build your business, invest in real estate. I love you guys.